Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another walk and talk. We're just testing out a little bit of different scenery today, going for a bit of a different walk, getting some exercise, getting away from the desk, away from the charts, picking up the camera and talking crypto, trying to be as real as possible, giving you my thoughts and opinions on what I think is going on in the space. So today we are going to be discussing some recent kind of, I guess, developments, if you want to call it that, with BlackRock and the ETF, and some insight into kind of, you know, the different kind of acts from 1933 to 1940, how the SEC are trying to position themselves, where the BlackRock basically mammoth company is basically positioned themselves on where they think they position the Bitcoin spot ETF and why it shouldn't be treated any differently than that of, you know, future ETFs or anything like that. Ultimately, there's a little bit of backwards and forwards on the 1933 Act, specifically around whether or not a Bitcoin spot ETF should be treated, differently. And BlackRock's approach to this is quite straightforward, really, is that the 1933 Act essentially is more to do with fraud and to do with more with protecting consumers from the companies directly, and less to do with, and also more to do with custodians and things like that, and less to do with the mechanics and the inner workings of spot ETFs. And so, you know, it actually makes a lot of logical sense that this shouldn't be a hold-up for the Bitcoin spot ETF. And if it is going to be a delay of any sort, the SEC are more than likely going to be looking at that. It's quite interesting if we kind of dive down into the kind of the inner workings of these things. So as we can kind of see, I think we aren't seeing any kind of a major, I guess, like stopping blocks for the Bitcoin spot ETF. I do think it is coming, it is just around the corner. But again, Gary Gensler, the SEC, they might not necessarily see it that way. They might kind of look at everything as, you know, a delay option, right? Kind of keep things in there, not denying it, but, you know, delay. Now, ultimately, it's on track for approval, at least according to most of the mainstream media and crypto media outlets, for January. Imminent is the Bitcoin spot ETF. And I personally think that would be great. I think it'd be fantastic to kind of see an approval for the Bitcoin spot ETF. However, I wouldn't put it past the SEC, I wouldn't put it past Gary Gensler to do another delay tactic and kick that can down the road a little bit further. So I'm going to be a little bit cautious, I guess. We can see the price action's quite stagnant for Bitcoin, at least at the point of recording this video. I do expect, though, another surge to the upside. We can kind of see this in the data of the charts and the markets generally, not just Bitcoin, but the altcoins as well. If you're down in the Discord and you're a part of kind of the elite trader sections that we have, then you'll know that I have gone long on a couple of cryptocurrency assets. And I do think there's going to be some real good gains to be made in this next little surge to the upside. I kind of put a Bitcoin video out this morning. If you haven't yet checked that out, you should go and check it out. Kind of saying that we kind of expect, like, you know, a push upwards towards $40,000. But at the same time, the macroeconomic climate and the macro charts for Bitcoin do indicate that we are likely to see a bit of a pull to the downside. So I kind of put a thumbnail together, you know, 40,000 on the short term and 20,000 on the longer term, because I do think we are likely to see a 40 to 50% reduction in the price action of Bitcoin in the coming months. So this is something to kind of be very mindful of, be very aware that things aren't always going to be moving up in straight lines. You do have to have these pretty natural, healthy corrections, of which 40% reduction is actually a pretty standard reduction for Bitcoin. If you actually look at the history of Bitcoin, it's the most common retracement that Bitcoin tends to have, even in bullish markets, is 40%. So it's not unusual to see Bitcoin potentially moving down towards that 40%, which would put us into the fair value gap, or more specifically, the CME Gap, in the futures market at $20,000 to $21,000. And I think that's really the last opportunity to really get into Bitcoin and the altcoins, because everything will be crashing at the same kind of time. So for the most part, you know, everything is kind of moving along quite nicely. I expect some gains in the short term, and I expect some pretty decent accumulation to occur you know, as we kind of finish off the year, go into 2024. So, you know, Bitcoin spot ETFs being around the corner the way that they are, that's great. It's great news for crypto space. But of course, just getting the approval doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a Bitcoin spot ETF instantaneously up and running. I'm not sure what kind of time it's going to take BlackRock to spin something like that up. Imagine that they've probably already kind of got most of the stuff in the background working. So it could be pretty quick. It could happen within a week, it could happen within a month. It might even take them 6 months before they get something up and running. I don't think it will take them that long, mind. But, you know, it's one of those things that we should be aware of. That approval is one thing, actually getting something actioned and put out there is something else as well. And of course, with Bitcoin spot ETFs, following that, you've got your Ethereum spot ETFs as well. So there's going to be quite a lot of buzz in the crypto space when these things do get approved. And the FOMO is going to be something totally different. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that we are likely to still see that sell-off, that little bit of pull to the downside. Many different reasons, fundamental reasons as to why we might see that. But we cannot ignore that things can change very rapidly on the back of some fantastic news like a Bitcoin spot ETFs or even Ethereum spot ETFs. These could drive such significant levels into the crypto space that it will dwarf anything that we've seen so far, meaning that we could see one hell of a bullish market on the backs of these spot ETFs. It's not something for the faint-hearted, this is something that we want to be very aware of. And so therefore, waiting to kind of dollar cost average into the market when we see like a significant pull to the downside can sometimes cause a little bit of anxiety as well. We should be aware that although we expect price to pull back down, a dollar cost averaging strategy is something that I would, in my opinion, say is a really good strategy to have. It allows you to kind of dollar cost average, slowly build your positions without worrying about, the peaks and the troughs of price action. If we haven't already got significant positions, I would be really seriously considering what it is that we're doing in the crypto space. Myself and Chris and the crypto crew down here at Cheeky Crypto, we've actually got pretty significant positions. I'd say that some of us are better along that journey than others, but we definitely do have exposure to a lot of these different cryptocurrency assets. And so we want to make sure that as we kind of pull back, we finish off those portfolio building potentials and we kind of really take advantage of what is to come. Because as soon as we start to see these Bitcoin spot ETFs getting approved, we are going to see some real significant growth in the crypto space. And some of these prices that we've seen and some of these prices that we've enjoyed, we're just not going to be able to see them happen again and again. So we're not going to revisit some of these low levels. So just be very mindful over that. And the other thing to kind of really be kind of cautious on, and something that you probably start thinking about if you haven't done so already, is making sure that you have exposure to as many of these different cryptocurrency exchanges as you possibly can. In these bullish times, they can be sometimes very difficult to actually log onto these platforms, very difficult to use them considering the amount of bandwidth that is being soaked up by such high demand. So it's important that you have exposure to as many as you possibly can. Now personally, my favorite is BitGet at the moment. Links are in the description down below, but there's many others to choose from as well. Also, a whole dozen of them are down in the description below. And if you do use those affiliate links in the description, you will be helping out the channel massively, but also being able to take advantage of some of the fantastic offers and deals that they have available to new users. So if you haven't done yourself that favor yet, check it out. Links are in the description below. They really will help you out massively. Whether you are a leverage-based trader or whether you are just a spot-based trader, you have to make sure that you have the right kind of strategies ready for that next bullish market when it does come, because you don't want to get caught out not having exposure to the right assets, not having exposure to the right cryptocurrency exchanges, so that when the time comes you can liquidate your assets without the hassle, without the stress of having to set up new accounts and having to go through KYC last minute. Make sure you've got everything set up, make sure you test everything, make sure you're aware of how to onboard and offboard assets from these exchanges. It really will help you out massively. So I think all in all, we're in a pretty interesting spot for crypto as a whole. I think Bitcoin's pretty interesting right now. And I think many of these altcoins have started to run as well. We've seen Solana do incredibly well. We've seen Chainlink do incredibly well. And I think a lot of this is likely to continue once we have that nice healthy correction that I'm expecting. So I think that's going to wrap up today's video. Just a bit of a walk and a talk, talking about crypto, what I think is going on, what I think is likely to happen next, and all that wonderful stuff. As I guess wrap this video up, If you do have found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new, subscribe. And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, what are you waiting for? Check it out. The link is in the description down below. Until the next one, have a fantastic day.